Hi everyone and welcome back to Jenny's Allotment Garden. I hope that you've had a really good week and that you've been enjoying the lovely weather we've been having. And although it does look like it is about to break, which for me is probably a bit of a good thing, I have been clearing the very last section of my site today, this week. So I have pulled out all the weeds. I've had to dig it over because I had quite a lot of bindweed in there and loads of other perennial weeds. So I've pulled all those out. But it's just been too hot for me to level it out so that I could cover it in cardboard and put some compost on to make my last two beds. Realistically, I just need it to rain, just a little bit, not a lot. I just need some rain so that it could just break up that, just soften that top layer of soil so that I can level it out really easily. I probably could just do it with a hose and some water, but it would take a much longer, and it's meant to rain this weekend. So if it does actually rain, then that's what I'm going to be doing, leveling that last section, putting some cardboard down and putting in my last two no dig beds. But yeah, that has taken quite a while, but I'm really glad that I'm on the home straight, which is really wonderful. So the other things that I've been doing this week have mostly been about getting stuff ready to actually go in the beds that are already up and running. So my garden table has been chocker full of plants this week as I'm hardening things off. So in particular, I really need to get my beans out. So I sowed two types of beans. Trail of Tears, which is a climbing French runner bean, which I'm growing for its beans to have dried rather than to have as fresh green beans. I already have some of those, so I don't really need two sets, but I really want them for dried beans. So they are pretty much ready to go in the ground. So I just bought some stakes for them. So I'm probably going to do that in the next couple of days because they've been sat outside for over a week getting used to the weather, which has been quite hard actually because we've had some really hot days. And so they're doing okay, but they're not brilliant. They're not brilliant. They have struggled a bit with the fluctuations in the temperature, particularly when it's been getting up into sort of the high 20s. It's just been scorching hot, and I'm trying to get them used to the fact that actually even when they come out here to the allotment, there isn't really any shade. So yeah, it's a bit of acclimatizing, but I'm hoping that they should be fine. So I need to get those in the ground. I also sowed a runner bean, Czar, which creates big butter bean sized beans, but not a single one of them has come up, which is a bit disappointing. And I was trying to figure out sort of what I'm going to do next. I could possibly go buy some runner bean starts and then just transplant those straight into the ground. And I have had a look around, but I couldn't find that variety. I could just find normal runner beans. Now, and because I don't eat fresh runner beans at all, I know lots of people do, but honestly, yeah, they're really not for me. But I really love the butter beans that they create. So I haven't been able to find starts of that variety or of another butter bean type variety so that I could put them in. So I've sown them again, but it is pretty late because I'm the 18th of June today. It's pretty late for putting in runner beans. But I was trying to think back because I think last year I probably didn't actually grow beans until June either. I didn't get tons. I don't even remember. I think they fell over a few times as well. My wigwam skills not quite up to par, so hopefully we'll do a bit better this year. But I'm pretty sure I didn't sow them until June last year anyway. So I'm hoping that this new set that I've sowed will actually come up and we can get those in the ground really quickly. I don't sow beans directly here at the allotment because there's quite a lot of mice and they basically just pull them up and then run off with the beans, and so you get no runner beans at all. So I'm starting them at home and hoping that will work really well for us and I'll actually get some beans up, which would be amazing. The other thing that I've been hardening off is the squashes. Now, you saw I sowed for redundancies, I guess. So I sowed extra courgette, extra patty pan in particular, my two summer squash, because I wasn't sure how well they would do. And obviously, sod's law, they've all done amazingly well. So I then have ended up with 4 of each of those plants, which is way more than I or anybody else would ever need, because nobody can eat that much summer squash. Even if you have a big family, that would be quite hard work. So what I've been doing is doing my best to give them away. So I've managed to give away 2 of the courgettes, which is fine. I could probably manage with just 2 of them, maybe. So I've given away 2 of the courgettes, and I actually swapped one of them out for a butternut squash, which is great because I didn't try to grow any this year. I tried last year and it was basically an utter failure. But one of my friends was growing a butternut squash, so she's passed me butternut squash. I've passed her a courgette, which in fact she's passing on to another gardener as well. I do love that about being part of, you know, like an allotment or a gardening community, that thing whereby you can just pass stuff to other people and people are really happy to pass things to you when they've got surplus. It's actually a really lovely way of like building community and connections and friendships whilst you garden. So I'd recommend it. If you have too much stuff, just offer it to somebody else because they'll probably say yes. It's something that lots of people are really happy to do. But anyway, so I've managed to get rid of some squash, but I haven't yet managed to lose any patty pan. But I'm probably going to share those out among people on this site. And hopefully I then won't end up with too many of them. But I've not grown patty pan squash before, so I actually don't know like how many fruits you get per plant, how prolific they are. So I do definitely want to keep 2 plants just so that I can see what that kind of looks like, and sort of gauge it. I might end up with too many, but it's not too much of a problem. I can always give them away, so I don't mind too much. So all of my winter squash have also been hardening off and they are pretty much ready to go into the ground. I just needed a free day in order to do that, so I am going to try and get that done in the next couple of days and actually get those into the ground. Again, probably have slightly more than I can realistically fit in the beds that I've got. And so we do need those 2 extra beds on the end completed so that I can put squash in them. But I might just have to, so I think what I might do is plant out some and probably pot on some others into larger pots whilst I wait for the rain to come, which hopefully will be tomorrow. So I should be able to get that done in the next couple of days. So I have managed to get a couple of other things in the ground, which has been pretty good. So I've put in that second set of sweet corn. I think maybe 2 weeks ago I'd said that half of my sweet corn just completely failed and did not germinate. So I planted out, I sowed a new set, which have come up great. And so I've put those in the ground now as well. I think what's been really obvious though is that the ones that I've put in first have got really, really yellow. I didn't really know why. Although I do have compost on the top of all my beds, the sweet corn are actually planted quite deep. They are planted into like the native soil and mulched with compost on top. And so I've had lots of sort of like conflicting advice about what to do about the sweet corn. But one of my plot neighbours had said to me, she's actually said to me to try an Epsom salt solution, which Epsom salts are actually magnesium. But she said what they do is it helps your plants to absorb nitrogen. And she's done it on her sweet corn and they've greened right back up and are flourishing, grown away really, really well. So I am actually going to give that a try and we'll see how it goes. So I'll let you know, how I get on with it. But hopefully that will work, because now that I've put both sets in, the contrast is really clear that the ones I brought from home are very, very green. And the ones that are here at the allotment that were here already, they have definitely grown, they've bulked up, got really thick stalks, but they are definitely getting quite yellow. So that's something I'm going to have to figure out as we go along and try and work out how to make that work. So I've also put some cucumbers in, market more they are. So they're just a standard cucumber. They can trail on the ground, which is what I was going to do with them. And then I've since then had a bit of a, is that really the best plant sort of thing? And I'm unsure. So I am thinking one of the things I might do is stake them in the ground so that they grow upwards, because that would give me some more space, because as I said, I've got too many winter squash. I don't have enough space for all of them. So I was thinking actually I might train them upwards instead so that they climb up a tall stake, and that way I can they'll still fruit like that absolutely fine, but I think that might be what I do with them in order to relieve some of the ground space and give me some vertical space as well. In fairness, it might just make the allotment slightly more interesting anyway, because everything's pretty flat at the minute. I don't have a lot of vertical height in there. Not that that matters that much, but you know, I like it to be nice to look at as well as like fun to be in and enjoy gardening in it. So I think I'm probably going to do that. It's a possibly maybe, I don't really know. I think last year in this greenhouse actually, the guy that has the plot next door, he'd put his cucumbers in pots and had grown them up a stake, and actually they were fine and they actually grew really long and straight. I don't know if that was just because they weren't on the ground, but either way it did work. So I might try that out and just, yeah, you know, see how it goes. So I think I will give that, yeah, probably going to give that a go. We've also been harvesting strawberries, much to my children's delight. And also it's quite nice for me because it's nice to have them come and join in. And it's lovely that they're harvesting something that they're happy to actually eat, which is also good. So I'm harvesting strawberries about once every 3 days. I think my only downside has been that they are not as sweet as I would have hoped. So I did a bit of research, and the general consensus seems to be that that might just be because it was so cold and wet in May. So that fluctuation in temperatures whilst the strawberries were forming has made them less sweet. But it might be that as it sort of continues, they get a bit sweeter. In fairness, they're not like, there's only a couple of them that are a little bit sour, but generally they're tasty. So it's been fine. Yeah, that's not really been a problem. And it's been really lovely to actually finally get something of a harvest as well. Sort of feel like I've been growing for ages and not bringing anything home. So that was actually a real high point for this week for us, just to be able to actually get something out of the ground at last. It has been a really slow year for growing, just because the weather hasn't been as, I guess, predictable as we would have liked it to be. But you know, it will happen. It's just a little bit behind, but that's fine, isn't it? The rest of the year's still here. There's still plenty of time to grow things, so that's okay. The other thing that I actually planted out this week was my dwarf French beans. They are the reason that the other French beans I'm growing are for drying. So I had about, I don't know, maybe 30 plants, which I've put in the same bed as my parsnips. Yeah, so I actually lost 2 parsnips. Not entirely sure why. They just sort of died. I don't know. I'd been watering them regularly since I planted them out. They were hardened off at home first. I don't know, they were possibly just slightly weaker plants. I'm not really sure why they didn't survive, but they didn't. But it's only 2 of them, and all the rest of them are looking fine and are actually really starting to grow and, you know, putting on new leaf. So that's pretty good. And so they are now surrounded by green beans. So I will probably have more green beans than is really necessary, but that's okay. I'm happy to give some away. So I've put in the green beans. I'm really glad that that bed is full as well. I don't know, it just always, I think the allotment always looks a lot nicer when you're able to fill up the beds. Yeah, it's quite a nice thing having them all full. I'm like, oh yeah, they look good when they're all together like that. So that's been quite good. And hopefully that will work out okay. I am coming back to water them quite regularly because it's been so hot. And French beans, whilst they are a tender crop, so you can't say they're not good. They can't go outside before the last frost date, but at the same time they also don't seem that keen on super hot weather either. So I am watering them probably more than I would do usually, so well, like twice a week instead of once a week, which is what I normally do for the whole allotment. So I am coming midweek to give those a water, just because they seem to need it. And I've tried to leave a lot more space between them this year in the hope that we get a decent crop from them. So they've got about 15 centimetres between each one, and they're like planted on the diagonal as well, so they could fit them all in, but hopefully that should work out okay. The other thing that I'm having to water much more regularly is the peas, which are just not doing well at all. They were beautiful when they were at home. I hardened them off outside. They were still beautiful and wonderful, but I've put them in the ground and they're just dying off, mostly from, I think, whilst, yeah, they maybe just don't have enough root on them to survive particularly well. And so I'm just having to water them pretty regularly. So I am checking on them quite frequently. But yeah, I have lost a few, but then I have a couple that look like they're thinking about doing something. I don't know. I'm just going to have to see. I was really hoping to have those sugar snap peas because they are one of my favourite vegetables. And I'd picked a yellow variety as well this year. So I was like, oh, that could be really lovely and should look really nice on the plot, all, pretty yellow peas and stuff. But, we'll see, won't we? Hopefully it'll be okay and they will actually recover, but they are really not looking great at the moment. This week, I've also been trying to think ahead to what happens when I harvest some of the stuff that is currently at the in the beds at this allotment, because I don't want to have tons of empty space as it goes into September. I want to be able to continue cropping if possible. So I have sown some more kohlrabi. I've sown like 12 this time, which is actually quite a lot. I did think about this afterwards and was thinking, that might be more kohlrabi than like one family can realistically eat. My family do really like it. We tend to use it in salads and in coleslaws, that kind of thing quite a lot. But 12 is quite a lot. But either way, I'm sure it'll be fine. So I've sown those. I've also sown some perpetual spinach. I haven't had any spinach yet this year because none of my spinach took. But last year I grew perpetual spinach and it was fine. So I've also put that in as well. And I'm hoping that I can put those in a little bit later on when I take out probably that first row of broccoli and also the beetroot that I've got. When they come out, I'll have something else to go into those two beds ready to go. And I've also sown some callaloo, which is callaloo realistically is like a tropical green. And we have it back in Jamaica and it's in lots of Caribbean cuisine. And I really, really wanted to grow it. So I ordered some from a specialist seed site, and have to say I am really quite disappointed because they've sent me a red callaloo rather than a green callaloo. And I was just like, oh, I am honestly just a bit disappointed. You know, when you're like really looking forward to something and then it turns out not to be quite what you wanted. But in saying that, red callaloos aren't bad or anything. I just wanted a green one. So I'm going to grow them on anyway. So I've got some tiny seedlings at the moment. And when they get a bit bigger, I will bring them out and plant them out here in the allotment. And I'm just going to give it a go and try not to worry about it. Callaloo is one of the amaranth plants. So they grow quite tall and they have really sort of frothy flower heads. And you can eat the seeds. In fact, they're used as grain in lots of other places in the world as a grain that you would eat instead of rice or quinoa or whatever else it is that you want to eat. So you can save the seeds and eat them as grain, which I won't be doing because it's the leaves that I really want. But yeah, I'm just decided that although it's not exactly what I wanted and it hasn't worked out the way that I was hoping, we're just going to grow them anyway and I will see how they do. And then I'm just going to do a bit more research and see if I can find either a seed circle or a heritage seed variety, someone else that might have a green callaloo which is acclimatized to the UK climate. So I will keep trying, but it's not the end of the world, is it? It's just it's just veg. So it's not terrible. It was just a bit disappointing. And I've also I sowed my kales a couple of weeks ago, so they are all now ready to pot on into bigger pots, which I will need to be getting on with. I'm probably going to try and get that done next week, but I'm doing so much next week. Who knows what I will get done? We will see. I do need to pot them on though. They're not ready to come out yet at all, but they do need to grow on inside. I might bring them out here and pop them in the greenhouse, but yeah, I've probably got enough space at home. Once I clear all the squash, I should have space for them. So I'll pop those on as well, ready to be to go in. They'll be going into the small allotment by the park actually, because I've got a cage ready for them there. But yeah, they also need potting on, ready to go. So all in all, it has been a pretty busy week, and it's been really lovely to be able to get outside so much with the weather being so lovely. I think it's really made a difference to sort of how the site feels as well, because there've been loads more people out. But yeah, it's been really, really good, and I do feel like it is finally sort of coming together. The the beds are starting to fill up. It's starting to look a bit more like a proper allotment finally. But yeah, it's been good. So I hope you have been enjoying gardening too, that you've managed to get out in the sun, and hopefully you've had better luck than I have with things like peas and beans. But let me know how you're getting on your plots as well, how your gardens are going, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye.